If you're doing inbound marketing, you're in the habit of giving away content for free. Your team writes articles, films videos, records podcasts, and then those are available for anyone with a computer. But sometimes you might want to gate some of your content, especially your premium content. That is, to require someone to fill out a form or sign up for something in order to access that piece of content. Now, inbound marketers are divided on this idea, and I've heard impassioned opinions on both sides. So, should you gate some of your content or should it all be free? That's the question we're going to address today on Solving Inbound. Welcome back, everyone, to Solving Inbound. I'm John Becker here with Connor Delaney, and today we're taking up the sometimes prickly topic of gated content. So, Connor, first we're going to explain what gated content actually is, and then talk about both pros and cons, and let people kind of make up their own mind for what their business needs and what their audience needs. Does that sound good?
It's perfect. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one.
Great. So, Connor, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start us off. When we say gated content, what do we mean?
So gated content is where perhaps you have an ebook. Again, I don't want to define what gated content is, but you have a piece of content that someone in your audience desires, they would like to have. And you put it behind, for some people, it could even be a paywall. But for most people, we call it an information wall, where it requires a certain amount of information, let's say something like an email, to get that piece of content. And once me, the visitor, I submit that piece of content, you get my email address and I get the piece of content that I want. And it's very transactional. And that's, again, gated is behind a form. It may be behind a paywall, but typically it's behind an information form.
Okay. And you talked about premium content. And you said an ebook. I know you don't want to define this
hiding
too
from
much,
it a little bit.
But what kind of content are people typically gating, at least in the businesses that we work with?
They're typically gating things like, let's say, white papers or ebooks, or potentially even demo videos, or maybe even scheduling a call can even be like scheduling a demo or a walkthrough can even be considered gated content. Typically, they're gating someone or something that's beyond a blog article. It could even be something like subscribing to a newsletter is considered gated content. The reason that this content is gated is because it's of enough value for us where we can say we want to then be able to engage with you potentially. We may want to set up a call, but we want to gather some information because it's potentially it's requiring more work from you. I might be rambling a little bit, John, but I hope that gets the idea across.
Absolutely. Right. And there are lots of different ways to gate it. Sometimes you might, if you're saying something like an ebook or a white paper, you might have the first chapter or portion of it to be free and then have something pop up like, want to read the rest? Sign up to download it. And therein, I think we see the obvious pros. You are exchanging this is transactional, as you said, you're exchanging your premium piece of content for their contact information, or maybe more information, maybe demographics or the business they work for, or something that allows you to add them to your database, maybe consider them a lead, maybe depending on what the piece of content is, connect them with your sales team or with someone who does a product demo. So those are the obvious pros. Anything I'm leaving out?
I don't think so. I think some people may even, I think pros comes with who is it a pro for? In a sense, you could even be saying it's a pro for the business, but it might be a con that I have to add, like I, as the consumer, have to share it. Or it might be a pro for the business because they get that content information and then the person realizes it's not actually valuable for them, that kind of thing too.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Ideally, it should be a pro for both. Mm-hmm. Any kind of transaction, if you buy something at the store, you give money in exchange for an apple, and you feel like you are making, it's worth 70 cents, and you get the apple, and the store thinks it's worth 70 cents to give you the apple, and everybody walks away happy. And ideally, the same thing is true with gated content, that you're not asking for money. You're not asking for more than is reasonable for what you are offering. But this can lead into some cons of gated content and some of the reasons why certain people are completely against it. So give me the flip side of that, Connor. What's the cons of gated content that people might object to inherently?
The most common con to gated content is the friction that it can cause for the consumer. Very often, especially in the inbound space, the consumer wants to get as much information as possible. And when you're hiding it behind any kind of gate, it can sometimes leave a sour taste in that consumer's mouth of, are you hiding it from me? Maybe I don't want to give as much information as you're asking. And I think that might be the dangerous side of gating content, is gating it for the right amount of information. And you mentioned, John, like sometimes they might be asking for too much. If I'm signing up for a newsletter, I don't want to share things like company size, revenue that I'm driving,
home phone number,
those home phone number, social security, that like, you don't want to have to share a crazy amount of information for something that doesn't feel at least close to a one-to-one transaction. And so many businesses that I've seen get caught in that trap of, oh, you're going to subscribe to the newsletter that shares our blog each day. If you sign up, I need to know a ton of information, and it destroys trust that you're trying to build with that brand. And it typically doesn't feel like you're making it. And that friction can actually push away revenue for your business. If you are causing too much friction for someone to sign up for a newsletter or download an ebook, what's the likelihood that they're actually going to sign up for a sales call or a demo down the road when they might not even trust you yet? They're probably not even going to try to go through the whole transaction and even give you their email to start.
Yeah, and that leads into something else, Connor, which I know you're familiar with, and other people in Impact are as well. Whenever someone is in contact with your business, you have to get their consent before you engage them in nurturing campaigns or sign them up for your newsletter. That's the big worry for people. They think, oh gosh, I'm going to give my email address just to get this one thing which I would like to read, and then I'm going to get spammed by them and by other people, and it's going to be such a hassle. It's not even going to be worth it. And so I think you're right. People's, they're concerned that they're going to be taken advantage of, or their inbox is going to be flooded or something like that. So it does come down to trust. It does come down to, GDPR compliance and making sure that you're not being unscrupulous with other people's personal data.
And that's the business's responsibility to share how that data is used. And, there's a lot of reasons that people shouldn't trust data. I would say over the last 5 years or so, we've seen a lot of not so good players using data the wrong way. But from the business's perspective, and we haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, but things like landing page videos, or just any time that a transaction is going to happen on your website, there should be an explainer of what happens next. If you subscribe to The Latest, which is our newsletter, there's a video that shares what exactly is going to happen next. If you go and sign up on one of our scheduling a call with an advisor forms, there's a video that walks through, here's exactly why we're going to collect this data and what's going to happen next. And it takes them through start to finish. You're going to submit this, you're going to get subscribed to the newsletter, and you won't receive anything else after that. Or it might say, and we're going to send you some other promotional emails. And that's why you see those check boxes underneath of, I consent to this, or I would like to receive promotions and other offers from XYZ company, is because they want to be able to send you more and more information about them, but you can't jump the line a little bit. You can't, there's a very fine line between using data to provide value and spam, like you said, or overpopulating an inbox. And a lot of companies will play with this, and that's not a bad thing to experiment with gating certain content, ungating others, but you'll learn very quickly what your consumers are willing to give. And you have to, in a sense, listen to that and understand that they're really going to decide whether this is valuable or not for them.
Yeah, great point. And I think our audience is kind of hearing that you and I, Connor, are not saying, to gate or not to gate. It depends on your business. It depends on your customers.
Answer.
etc. But I think it's easy to see both the pros and cons. And to me, I think the big takeaway is you should always balance your company's needs with your customers' needs. We all know what it's like to be on the other end, to sign up for a 10% off your next purchase if you give your email address, or to download something, or whatever it is. And if you think like a customer, then you're more likely to treat them how you would want to be treated. And the last thing that I'll share along with that is to make sure that whatever you're asking for feels relevant and feels reasonable based on what they're getting. Like you said, this is transactional. And, if the apple costs 70 cents, I feel fine about it. If the apple costs $70, and I have to give like you said, my social security number. Yeah, no. So if you're offering a piece of premium content and it's behind a gate, maybe it's just an email you ask for. You're not asking them to sign up for a 30-minute meeting with your sales team. That doesn't feel appropriate for what they're getting. And it feels excessive, and people are going to naturally be resistant to that. So if you can suit what you're offering, what you're asking for to each other, then you're on the right track, because you're thinking like a customer.
Definitely. It's much easier to build up trust from a low starting point than it is to jump a lot, but you can break trust just as easily. And for me, I would rather get someone in the door, start them on that journey towards working with you, and see them take the action versus you trying to force it towards them. And I think that at the end of the day is kind of the golden rule of inbound. Let them make the decisions, let them move themselves across the journey. Once they hit that point, I think that your audience is going to be really happy about it, and they're more likely to work with you down the road. Play
the long game.
That's it.
Great. So whether you choose to gate or not, is up to you and up to your needs, but there are pros and cons. Just remember, think like a customer. Treat them how you would want to be treated. And then you're always moving in the right direction. Connor, thank you for your insights here, and a good discussion to start. I know it's something we're going to revisit on other episodes, but I think just sort of acknowledging what gated content is and the pros and cons feels really important for anyone starting off in inbound.
Completely agree. John, thanks so much for joining me for another episode, and our audience, thank you for listening. This has been another episode of Solving Inbound, where we kind of answered the question of should we gate, or I guess gate or not to gate. But nonetheless, there are certainly principles and ways to think about it that we all must keep in mind. So with that, it's been another episode of Solving Inbound. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you later.